Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about some confusion that I've been reading surrounding this year's draft, the 2023 draft for your Pittsburgh Pirates. Obviously, if you're a Pirates fan, you know by now, if you follow them even in the least bit, that Paul Skeens has been signed, our number one, the 1-1, out of Louisiana State University, coming in at $9.2 million. That's around a $500,000 saving. And a lot of people, as soon as they hear this saying of he's signed under slot, their thoughts automatically drift back to the 2021 draft, in which Henry Davis, who's now with the big league club, was signed. And then, the Pirates had this, magical draft that was praised by, pretty much everybody at the time, including myself, being able to get an Anthony Solometto, being able to get Bubba Chandler, Lonnie White Jr., and it was like, wow, the Pirates went under slots. So they were able to get, what ended up being, pretty much four of the top, 50 prospects within the rankings that year, which, looking back on it, they were able to, get Bubba Chandler away from going to Clemson University to be a quarterback. They were able to get Lonnie White Jr. from, his commitment to Penn State, where he probably would have, been a wide receiver and also, played on the baseball team. So everybody thinks that, as soon as they heard the underslot, it's, like, where are these savings going? Well, if you remember correctly, Henry Davis was signed for almost $2 million under slot. So, everybody gets their bonus, the signing bonuses that they can hand out for the draft. The Pirates were over $16 million for this year. So, if you think about it, you then have probably around, $7 million to sign as many players as you can for the rest of the draft. And we've seen, other underslot signings, Mitch Jebb out of Michigan State signed for underslot. I don't know if we've even really seen an overslot deal at this point in time. But if you save, say, $2 million on your first signing, and then you go under slot, I think it was with it was Justin Mice, Luke Brown, and a few other people that were notable that they said, we have about $2.3 million in savings to be able to spread out throughout the draft to get some guys away from their commitments. And that's a lot more money than, what the Pirates have been saving so far this year. And the biggest thing to me is everybody's like, okay, so where is this savings going? And I know that, people go to, the different draft trackers and stuff to see, where players are ranked, and saying that, why would they pay this guy an overslot value? Because, where he's being picked at, it's actually, prior to his actual, ranking. And the biggest one I've seen here is Xander Meath. And Xander Meath, the biggest thing to me is this is kind of twofold. With Xander Meath, you, number one, have to get him to, step away from his college commitment, his commitment to Ole Miss. And this isn't a commitment that he just made. He made this commitment, it was back in January of this previous year. So it was even, before his junior season had even started. So it's not even like, this guy had, just committed now. So he's had this pretty strong commitment to this program to be able to possibly, with the ultimate goal of moving himself up through the ranks. And I saw, he's the 67th pick. It has about a $1.128 $1 million slot bonus. And it's like, so where would, why would you need to pay him an overslot? Because, according to MLB Pipeline, he's ranked at number 83. Well, I mean, I do like the MLB Pipeline rankings. I feel like that, their app and everything is super, navigatable, if that's a word. It's easy to navigate. And so, like, people will automatically say, well, that's where his ranking is at. But if you even just open up, one other ranking, if you would go to, Baseball America's top, 100 prospects, Xander Meath, he comes in at number 59 and has, pretty much like a grade that is listed as somebody who would be a regular contributor to a major league ball club with an overall grade of 50. So you're going to have to get this guy who has this commitment, who may, not be ranked as high because, I mean, he did struggle a little bit during his senior season, but also I think I mentioned on one of the previous Bucs in the Basement episodes that he really hasn't pitched a ton of innings through his junior and his senior season. So it's kind of tough to say, he's taking a risk if he would go to college. And then I also saw someplace else out there that, that him and his dad were super excited. So why would he require an overslot? And I kind of just gave the immediate example of a player in Bubba Chandler, who I had just spoken of, whose slot value at the time when he was picked in the draft was right around, I think it was like 800 to 875,000. And it basically took $3 million to get him away from, his commitment to Clemson University. And obviously he was a little bit, higher touted of a prospect. But the other thing is that you also have to look at the fact that not every draft class is created equal. I've been hearing, since I started, looking into this draft back this past offseason, that this was going to be, one of, the deeper draft classes, because, I mean, I hate that I keep on having to bring this up, but, you look back to 2020, to the pandemic year, that's where a lot of these, especially the college players, would have had to make the decision to, enter the draft, to sign with a team, and to take that risk in a 5-round draft. And there wasn't as much bonus money to go around. Obviously, not as much picks. You couldn't, play around with it too much. So, and I saw a lot of players just, keep to their commitments to the college ranks. So it's extremely deep draft. So there's that portion of it. So, I mean, and like I said, there's also just the differences between the rankings across sites. Even, Fangraphs had Meath at around a 69, drafted at 67. So you would think he would be right around that slot value. And, if he was, say, a college junior, you may have, a little bit more leverage there. But as a high school senior, already has the college commitment going on, you probably are going to have to go over slot. And I've seen some estimations of around, a $1.75 million to $2 million. So if you take that savings, the under slot that you did with Skeens of around 500,000, I mean, you're taking either that whole portion or more and borrowing some, of the savings that you got from some of the other guys, especially, savings you get from Mitchell Jebb, and putting that towards being able to sign Meath. And the other person that I, had looked at, and I mean, everybody's kind of already thrown in the towel on this one, and that's Daniel Cavey. And Cuvée is, third baseman, high school player, has his commitment to the University of Miami. Of course, soon after he was drafted, you see, I think there was an Instagram post that, can't wait to see you, at whatever stadium, the University of Miami plays at. Change the colors of his Instagram to Miami colors. And, I know, you got he's a 223 ranked prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, drafted at 497. I mean, obviously right there is going to be an overslot if you're going to want to sign him. And this kind of takes me back, and this is what I've seen people, say and talk about, leading up to, following these comments. Everybody forgets, Braylon Bishop. And, Braylon Bishop has been down in the FCL, hasn't, maybe lived up to that hype train that was kind of following him. And the reason the hype train was following him, I mean, number one, he's a very talented player, but I mean, the second thing was that, they drafted him, I believe it was in like the 14th round, was, ranked higher than that and would need to pay over slot to get him out of his commitment. And I looked back this morning as I was prepping for this, and I looked, and shortly after that, he had made a comment about going to Arkansas. He showed up on Arkansas's campus. He talked to them about his commitment to, the Arkansas program. Talked about how he was going to be staying with his cousins who were football players and wanted to get down there early and get working. Well, the Pirates came along at that point in time with, around, I think it was around $270,000 in a signing bonus, which was, obviously over slot when you're past the 10th round. And, surprise, surprise, all those comments that were made about, his commitment to Arkansas, can't wait to play there, showing up on campus. I mean, it was all for naught because, I mean, it is taking a risk. If a high school player, no matter how high they're ranked, for Cuvée to be ranked, 223 out of, 500 players or so, that end up getting ranked across, certain outlets and stuff. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, but you're also taking that risk that, number one, you're going to stay healthy at the University of Miami, that you're going to continue to play and perform well. I mean, there's players that, may struggle in their freshman year and then, may come along. And I mean, obviously performs extremely well at the high level that he's been playing at as a young man. Then, I mean, there is a possibility the ranks could go up, but is it going to be enough to, kind of offset, what could be offered to you at this point in time? And I mean, we had Joe Doyle on and we talked about how, a lot of the stuff that comes out prior to the draft, after the draft, it's a lot of negotiating techniques. And, maybe the Pirates, we don't know this at this point in time. This could be pure speculation. And it is pure speculation, is that, I mean, they could possibly come to him and say, we'll give you $200,000, say, to stay away from your commitment to Miami. And then maybe he goes out and he posts something that makes them think, well, you know what, maybe we're going to have to up that offer a little bit. And this isn't saying that they are going to be able to sign Cuvée, but it's just kind of like how these things work, for these types of players that are taken a little bit later. I mean, not surprisingly enough as well, Christian Curtis out of the Arizona State University, drafted in the 12th round, was drafted, at the 347th pick. And he's ranked within the top 200 within prospect rankings. So obviously, I mean, that one is going to also be, another overslot. And the Pirates have come out, even, I believe, before they even signed Skeens. I've seen tweets, from media members and other people after they've drafted Skeens as to the fact that, the Pirates are still planning to spend their, entire, bonus. I know that people wanted to see, more of that, splash signing, that they had made with a Solometto, with a Chandler, with a Lonnie White Jr. But sometimes those things just aren't really available there. I mean, the Pirates, they took the board in a way kind of as how it fell to them. Guys that they saw with, the most upside, Mitch Jebb, the big thing, we've seen come out after the draft. I mean, he signed for underslot. Was ranked 46th on MLB. Signed at, the 42nd pick. Has been working with Adam Eaton on some of his outfield as to, if he could play, center field. And that's something that Chris and I had talked about on the regular Bucs in the Basement feed, is just kind of, drafting athletic shortstops that can not only play shortstop, but can play, somewhere else out in the field. And I see a bunch of stuff about, his goofy swing. And I mean, you don't, be like the second best hitter in the Cape Cod, and you don't have a great, sophomore season prior to having a little bit of injury problems during this junior season. I mean, and be a part of a Big Ten program and, that goofy swing not work. I mean, if it works for him, it works for him. Hitting's all about timing. It's all about being comfortable. We've seen weird swings throughout, Major League Baseball, the annals of Major League Baseball. So that wouldn't be the first time. But, I mean, kind of just getting back to my original points, that I had been making, just about the fact that, the Pirates, I mean, fans, as soon as we hear, underslot, we were looking for that big splash. And I even had some of that in the back of my head until I started, like I said, like crunching and working the numbers. And, yeah, you got Skeens for underslot, and you're saving that to the ability to try to make some of these signings. Some of these signings don't work. I mean, unfortunately, after the 10th round, if you're not able to sign those players, then you don't get, that slot bonus back. But you at least want to have the ability, and especially if you're, making those picks later on. I mean, it wouldn't be losing a ton of money from your bonus, but I mean, you have to think that you believe that you have at least some ability to sign these players. And I mean, I just can't, I can't think of this being like a bad draft as to where everyone is going. Everyone's going, okay, well, you signed Paul Skeens and then you really didn't go anywhere else because you reached for Mitch Jebb, which I don't think 2 from 46 is much of a reach. Xander Meath, he's 67 to 83 or 59 or 69, depending on where you look at it. Garrett Forrester, Carlson Reed. I mean, I follow Joe Doyle. We've had Joe Doyle on here, and after, the Pirates, through their first 4 rounds of the draft, he's basically saying, Mitch Jebb is one of my sleeper guys, and this is, the Pirates are putting together a pretty solid draft, through those, 4 picks. So, I mean, and then they just go on a string of a ton of, college arms, those guys that had, been high school seniors, had their senior season shortened for 2020, and, probably didn't get to work up their, I guess their draft publicity or their draft stock as much as they wanted to. So, I mean, you're getting a decent amount of guys that maybe have not reached their full potential, maybe still have a little bit of polish that needs to be done, but they've also, been at some fairly large, college programs. I mean, going from West Virginia, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky again, Arizona State, Alabama. You're looking at a lot of large and good college programs. So it's hard for me to do that. So I mean, I guess the biggest thing is a takeaway from this is that, I mean, as soon as everybody heard underslot, they thought that there was going to be these big splashes somewhere, and not to say that there weren't, because I mean, prior to the 2021 draft, I could probably say that 95% of the people watching the draft as Pirates fans probably didn't even know who Anthony Salamito was. probably didn't know who Bubba Chandler was. Maybe knew who Lonnie White Jr. was if you were a Penn State fan and you knew he was committed to play football for you. And kind of the same thing goes, for Xander Meath in this draft. And now everybody wants Daniel Cuvée, and I guarantee you that most people didn't even know who Daniel Cuvée was prior to the draft. But, I mean, the one thing here for me that this kind of also led to, is kind of how my brain works, and it's just like letting you inside of this a little bit, is, as I was looking through these, draft rankings and different stuff, I mean, you have to go through the Pirates rankings, like their prospect rankings, to be able to get to, the draft rankings. And I think I had heard this said someplace else, and if I would give them credit, if I can remember where it was heard, but I listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of different stuff. But we talked about, how the top 10 prospects, within the Pirates system, especially according to MLB Pipeline, is going to be fairly depleted after this year. And so it was just something, it was like a thought on top of my head. I mean, Tamar Johnson, the number one, according to MLB Pipeline for right now, is still going to be there. Put Paul Skeens 1 or 2. To me, like prospect rankings, it doesn't mean automatic success. I would almost guarantee that, that Paul Skeens is going to be number 1, but whatever it would be. So you have 2 guys right there. Next in line, Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, Quinn Priester are all going to graduate at some point from the prospect rankings. I mean, if they all stick for the rest of the year, then that's what's going to happen. If Priester would struggle again, I really, unless Luis Ortiz starts showing something, Roansy Contreras, turns it around fairly quickly, I could see Quinn being up here, long enough. Nick Gonzalez, Leover Peguero. I mean, you're looking at pretty much a top 10 that would be in any order. The guys that would be left: Paul Skeens and Tamar Johnson, Anthony Solomito, Bubba Chandler. Mike Burrows is definitely going to fall down because, Mike Burrows is number 9 right now. And I mean, unfortunately, due to injury, like it's kind of going to be hard to judge what type of prospect he's still going to be until you see him pitch when he comes back in like a year and a half. And then you have, Jared Jones at number 10, who's, probably, that's going to stick. He's been going up other prospect rankings. So you see pretty much half of your top 10 prospect lists kind of go away. And I mean, even if you move it down a little bit further, Jared Triolo probably sticking, Carmen Majinski, who is at 22, and, maybe, possibly like Alika Williams. He's number 29, possibly coming up at that. And that's where the one thing I will say is that, I mean, I know that the Pirate system, the farm rankings that they've had, have pretty much been a lot on depth as opposed to, having the top ranked, like within the top 100s of, across Major League Baseball, having those types of rankings. So for me, like, I think that there's going to be, I'm kind of, I guess, maybe preparing people for the Twitter storm that may happen, once these guys graduate. And I mean, we haven't seen a trade deadline yet. We haven't had an off season yet. We don't know if there's going to be some things other than the draft to, build this farm system back up a little bit. But it just kind of, maybe struck me a little bit that, you aren't, I don't know who you would really see. I mean, if you're Donnie De Los Santos, possibly, I mean, he played extremely well down in the FCL, struggling a little bit in the beginning, coming up to Bradenton, maybe turning things around. But, he's like down at like 26, and he's probably a guy that you would want to see move up a little bit more. Thomas Harrington has struggled at times. Going up to Greensboro. We talked about it on one of the previous shows. Hunter Barco at number 13. I thought that we would be seeing him, I mean, at some point in time here, take the mound. I did see that, the Pirates organization, changed his status back at the end of April. So I was thinking that there would be, a little bit more progress in there. Malcolm Nunez at 14 being hurt, Dario Lopez at 17, being injured. Young Shuk Shim, he, kind of has been dealing with a little bit of an injury as well. So, I mean, it's just kind of like maybe preparing people for, a discussion about, the state and the depth within this farm system. But that's something, I will get to a little bit more, kind of once these guys graduate, once at least, getting some of the guys that we do sign and are drafted, getting them, within the top 30. And then especially if there would be any trades, as well as, any trades or anything that would happen this offseason, we can have that discussion at a future date. But until then, guys, let's go Indians, let's go Curve, let's go Hoppers, let's go Marauders, let's go FCL Pirates, let's go DSL Pirates, and I'll catch you guys later.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer, let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
The Pirates just got done playing the Cleveland Guardians, so I kind of had this one planned out beforehand. And thought that, I'd be recording this on a Thursday, going to be taking off for vacation tomorrow, heading down to Gatlinburg, going to be checking out a Tennessee Smokies minor league game with the family on Sunday, wherever we go. We check out another minor league baseball ballpark, check that off our list. And this one, it's going to be a Cubs AA. So some players, I might be able to do a little bit on some players that, you might be seeing coming up through the Cubs organization that, may be showing up at Wrigley and PNC in the next couple years here. But I decided to go with the beer review this week. Fatheads Brewery, as we know, Fatheads Brewery, most of their locations, other than the Southside Saloon in Pittsburgh, it's an Ohio brewery. To me, it's a Cleveland brewery. And so I went with two that I had tried before, came in this 4-pack, and two that I really hadn't had before, but were absolutely delicious beers. The first one, it's the award-winning, it's the Headhunter India Pale Ale, the IPA, coming in at 7.5. Talk about this all the time, guys. 7.5, a little bit heavy for me. Definitely do like the taste of this one. Going to give this one a 4.25, bring it down to a 3.75. My favorite that Fatheads makes, the Sunshine Dream IPA, the Session India Pale Ale, coming in at 4.9. This one for me, ladies and gentlemen, is a 4.75. Bring that down to a 4.25. If it was up to me and I was just buying, beers for the weekend, I would probably just buy a 12-pack of this one, so good. The next one, very cool name, a Fresh Hop Freddy, and it's Fresh AF around the top. I'm a sucker for cool cans. This one is also an IPA, coming in at 6%. This one, I'm going to go right around where the Headhunter was, give it the 4.25, bring that down to a 3.75. And the last one is Groovy Juice, the Hazy IPA. Definitely a very cool can here. He's kind of got it's Groovy Juice, so he's got the afro made out of the hops. Definitely a very cool looking can. But this one also for a hazy, coming in a little bit high. It's like a 7.1. Gonna go with the 400 on this one, bringing it down to the 350. I have liked a lot of the hazy IPAs. This one, I don't know if it was because of not having another tropical IPA or different type IPA in there, but it was just a little bit too much away from the other one. So this might be a one I might have to try again, for myself. So the 400 to the 350. May go a little bit higher, but for right now, I mean, we're kind of going to have to, test this one out again, maybe at a later date. I'll be catching you guys hopefully from a brewery down in the Tennessee, Smoky Mountain area. Hopefully one I saw down there was called Yeehaw Brewing. And hopefully we've got some good minor league baseball stuff to talk about.